Hi, in this video I'm going to write an xUnit test to verify that my project works. Now I have this simple ASP.NET M project that connects to an Azure database. Clearly it works. But I want to write the Azure or the xUnit test to verify that all this stuff works. So my project's opened. It's called Henry Practice 2. And I'm going to need to add the testing information to the project. I'm also going to need to add a project or a test to the project, and then I need to connect them and write the unit tests. So let's start by adding a test to the solution. You find your solution in Solution Explorer. You right-click it. You do an add. Okay, I've got to stop the project. That would help. Right-click, add, new project. You're going to pick your platforms, your language, and test, and I'm using xUnit. I'm going to call this. You should name it something that lets you know what you're testing. Create it with whatever framework you're using. My project's in .NET 6. I'm using .NET 6. So now we have a basic setup here for a test. You could rename this test if you want or leave it alone. I'm going to leave it alone because I only have one. If you have multiple tests in your project, name them as to what they're testing. Okay, now I need to link the test to the project. Again, back to the Solution Explorer. Excuse me. Right-click Dependencies. You're going to add a project reference. You're going to pick your project. What this step does is it allows your test class to see all the stuff in your main project. Here in your test, you'll add a using to it. Oops, not yet. I may as well add it. So using, name your project. Okay, so now I'm going to check and add in to the NuGet. I'm going to add in Asp Coordinate Mvc Testing. So I'm going to go to Tools. I'm going to go to NuGet Package Manager. I like the console. No, I like the GUI, sorry. I'm going to go to Browse, and I'm going to look for ASP.NET Core.mvc Testing. And it's this one, Microsoft ASP.NET Core MVC Testing. Pick the version that matches your project. I'm using 6. Pick it off, hit install. Hit OK. If you pick the wrong version, like I just did, it won't work. Yeah, apparently I'm not using 6 in this project, I'm using 5, so we'll go back to 5, I'll install. And this time it's installed. So here, you got to make sure you pick the version that matches your project. Okay, so back to my test. I'm going to add that using in. And now I'm going to modify my constructor for this test to use let's call it a factory to build my test. So I'm going to create a constructor here and a function. I use underscore the factory. All right, WebApplicationFactory allows you to create a lot of interaction between the web. It's Selenium-ish in the way that it works. We need to implement that as well. Add it up here. Notice I put my project in here in both cases. Here I'm adding my startup in. Alright, so this sets up and gives you a lot of power for later on. It's not entirely necessary right off the bat, but we'll use it in some of the tests going down the line. Alright, the first thing I want to do is I want to ensure the page loads. Okay, so let's create a simple fact, and this fact will be test that the book and cost index load. That particular page is under my home controller, under books and costs. I want to make sure that this index loads. It's got its own controller, which is under home. I misspoke. It's under its own. So, xUnit runs in an arrange, act, assert manner. We're in arrange. You build the scenario. Acts, you do the work. And then assert. You check to see if everything's correct. Okay, so what I'm doing here is I'm creating a web client. This is going to fire up a browser and actually check to see if something's running. Now, I'll do it mostly in memory, but it will actually run and launch the project. In act, I'm going to see what happens. I'm going to get a response. I'm going to use asynchronous here. And that's going to mean that this function will block until the project loads. And I'll put in the route to it. Make sure you spell that right. So this line will block until client is ready and actually loads the site. Now the assert. We'll see if it's loaded. So I should get, based on HTTP, I should get a 200 back. Technically, I should have this up here in Acts. So I'll get my code for what status code comes back there, and then I'm assert it. Alright, so excellent. Let's make it run. Test, run all tests. It's chugging away, it's downloading what it needs. The first test always takes a long time to run. I'm expecting this to pass. And look at that. Everything passes. To see a failure, change that to 404. That should fail. I just like to see failures here. I like to verify that my tests are actually doing what I expect them to do. So early on, I will intentionally fail a test just to make sure that my tests make sense and are legit. More than once, I've written tests that I thought were good and working, and they were not. And I found out the hard way, like you do so many other things in life. Awesome. So we have, at this point, we have verified that a page loads. I now want to check that all my pages load. And I want to check that a book is on the page. So let's check to see that all my pages load. That becomes a theory. So I'm going to skip this test, because I know it works. I'm going to modify it. Why aren't you skipping? the heck? There we go. Wow, that was bad. Couldn't remember the skip setup. So I'm going to skip this. So I'm going to modify this to use a theory. It's going to be essentially this code, but what's going to change is here. Let's make this a theory. And the function is going to require some inline data. I'm going to pass in all the possible classes. Now, you should know that comprehensive testing is impossible, but you can test lots of pages, which I'm doing here. This, man, it helps you until it doesn't help you. This inline data allows you to pass in many strings. Now, I'll test this one again. Oh, wow. Now my function will test all pages. So I'm basically going to do what I do up here, except instead of checking a particular page, I'm going to check the URL. This should not still be yelling at you. Oh, I need to import something. I need to import threading tasks. Okay, so let's run the test. When I take a look at this output, /home/contact fails to load. So something's wrong there. And if I look at it, maybe it's a slash in front of it. But index works, contact works. Let's look at my Solution Explorer. I don't have a contact. That side of that one fails. So that tells me that I don't have the file that I expect to find. Now I love the output here. You can clearly see what gets passed in, so you know exactly which one fails. Awesome. Home privacy worked even though I didn't have a slash. That's pretty cool. That was unexpected. All right, last thing I want to do here is I want to verify not only does book and cost index load, but there's a particular book on there. And I want to see that there's several books. And I'm reading it from a database, and I know it should be in the database, but I want to verify that they pop up. Now, again, you don't want to test everything. I could have thousands and thousands of books. So I'm going to create another theory test that checks for several books. Now, my data comes from A Guide to SQL by Mr. Pratt and others. I've been using this book for literally decades. Again, I'm going to call a bunch of inline data because this allows me to create an array of tests, essentially. I got tired of the drops getting in my face. And I'll check for books. Again, you have to pass in the string. Now, every piece of data you have in your inline data has to match here. You can have multiple things here. Like I could put like price here, like $40, and have, double comma price here. However many items you have in inline data has to match here. The data types also have to match. I'm going to go back to how I had it. And again, arrange act response. There's really no arranging going on here because I'm going to use a different method. I'm going to come up here. I'm going to add in a new class. Okay. I'm going to create an HTTP client object and I'm going to import. I'm going to do it the other way. HTTP client not only runs the browser, but allows me to see the content within it. So it allows me to do post and get and put and all the HTTP commands inside of my constructor. Create a client. The HTTP client will now allow me to, like I said, run the web, perform the web. So I'll use that down here. So that was arranged up above, so I don't need an arrange. The act will be var response equals 08. HTTP client.get async, and then the URL. I'm going to strip off there the page content. And it will pull off the entire page content, everything in the body, and dump it into this variable. And then I can search to see if it's in there. Now I'm going to convert it here to a string so I can do some cool methods on it. And now I'm going to assert. Use assert.contains. The title is somewhere in the string. Now that's a pretty hefty thing to chunk. I've got 40 books coming down. This will search the whole page for a particular book. Now, Harry Potter will be there twice, but I don't really care. I find one of them. Jaws is there once. There's a jazz book. Band of Brothers is up there. So let's verify the test works. Run all tests. One failed. Which one failed? Jaws failed. Jaws is not on the page. So I'd have to go and look to see if Jaws is in my database. It may not be. But I see here that that's something I would have to look for. If you've read about testing, you've heard about the factor of red-green refactor. There's a red. Now I'm going to go back and refactor my code to see why it's a red. It may be that Jaws is not in the online database now. I was just looking for one that's not there. But these other four work. And again, the test output is beautiful. It tells you which one fails and what to go look for. Awesome. So in this video, we demonstrated again how to use a theory. We learned two ways to test online. You check the codes using the regular factory create clients. And I was able to use HTTP clients to actually get the content and do other get, post, etc. All right, so thank you for watching. Good luck.